My king, that young cub lives on my territory. But what the Luna revealed next broke the Alpha King. The winter wind howled through the towering pines of the Cascade Mountains, carrying with it the scent of snow and ancient secrets. In the heart of Washington's wilderness, where modern civilization dared not tread too deeply, the Silverwood Pack had thrived for generations. Their territory stretched across thousands of acres of dense forest, hidden valleys, and crystalline streams that had witnessed countless seasons of pack life. Marcus Thornwood stood at the edge of the clearing, his broad shoulders tense beneath his wool coat as he surveyed the gathering crowd. At 32, he had earned his position as Alpha King through years of dedication, strategic thinking, and an unwavering commitment to pack law. His dark hair was pulled back from his face, revealing sharp features that bore the weight of leadership. The pack members assembled before him whispered among themselves, their breath forming small clouds in the frigid air as they waited for the council meeting to begin. If you're enjoying this story, please subscribe and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We love hearing from our community around the world. The matter at hand was unusual, even for a pack as established as Silverwood. For 3 weeks, reports had been coming in about a young wolf, barely past his first shift, living alone in the Eastern Territory. The boy, no more than 16, had been spotted hunting small game and taking shelter in an abandoned ranger station. What made this situation peculiar was that the Eastern Territory belonged to Diana Ashworth, the pack's Luna and Marcus's most trusted advisor. Diana emerged from the tree line, her silver blonde hair catching the last rays of daylight. She moved with the grace that came naturally to wolves of her lineage, her green eyes sharp and observant. At 28, she had served as Luna for 5 years, mediating disputes and maintaining the delicate balance between pack tradition and the demands of modern existence. She was respected, feared even, for her unwavering adherence to pack law. My king, Diana's voice cut through the murmur of the crowd, clear and authoritative. That young cub lives on my territory. Marcus nodded, acknowledging her claim. Territory rights were sacred among wolf packs, passed down through bloodlines and defended with fierce loyalty. Diana had inherited the eastern lands from her mother, and no wolf could dispute her ownership. The law was clear. Any wolf living on another's territory without permission was subject to removal, or worse, banishment from pack lands entirely. The council recognizes your claim, Luna Diana, Marcus replied, his voice carrying the formal weight of pack tradition. What action do you propose? The gathered wolves fell silent, watching Diana intently. Some expected her to demand the boy's immediate removal. Others whispered that she might show mercy, given his age. Diana's reputation for fairness was well known, but so was her commitment to maintaining order. Diana stepped forward, her expression unreadable. Before I state my position, there is something the council must know. Something that changes everything. Marcus frowned slightly. Diana rarely spoke in riddles, and her tone suggested this revelation would be significant. Speak freely, Luna. The boy's name is Ethan Cole, Diana began, her voice steady but carrying an undertone of emotion that few had ever heard from her. 3 weeks ago, I discovered him on my land, half-starved and sleeping in a drainage pipe near the old logging road. He was alone, terrified, and had clearly been surviving on his own for some time. She paused, her eyes scanning the crowd before returning to Marcus. I did not report him immediately because I needed to understand his situation. I needed to know why a young wolf would be living wild in our territory without seeking pack protection. Marcus's jaw tightened. Diana's failure to report the boy immediately was a breach of protocol, albeit a minor one. But he trusted her judgment enough to hear her out. And what did you discover? Ethan is not a rogue by choice, Diana continued. He was born to Sarah and Robert Cole, both of whom died in the mudslide that destroyed the northern settlement last spring. You remember it, Marcus. the disaster that killed 17 pack members. A ripple of recognition moved through the crowd. The mudslide had been a tragedy that shook the entire pack. Families had been torn apart, homes destroyed, and the survivors scattered across different territories as they rebuilt their lives. Ethan survived because he was staying with his grandmother in Seattle that week, Diana explained. When he returned, everything he knew was gone. His parents, his home, his entire sense of belonging. He was sent to live with a distant aunt in Portland, a human who knew nothing of our world. Marcus listened intently, beginning to understand the complexity of the situation. A young wolf, newly orphaned and thrust into a human environment, would have struggled immensely. The first shift was challenging enough with pack support and guidance. Alone, it could be devastating. For months, Ethan tried to adapt, Diana said, her voice softening. But the aunt couldn't understand his behavior, his needs. When he had his first shift in her backyard, she panicked, called animal control. Ethan ran, and he's been running ever since. The crowd murmured sympathetically. Several pack members who had lost family in the mudslide wiped at their eyes, remembering their own grief. He came back to the only place that felt like home, Diana continued. To our territory, to our forests. And he ended up on my land because it borders where his parents' cabin once stood. He wasn't challenging my authority or breaking pack law out of disrespect. He was a lost child trying to find his way back to the only family he'd ever known. Marcus studied Diana carefully. This revelation explained the boy's presence, but it didn't explain the emotion in Diana's voice, or why she had kept this information to herself for 3 weeks. There's more, Diana said, as if reading his thoughts. During these weeks, I've been bringing Ethan food, teaching him to control his shift, helping him understand what he is. And in doing so, I've learned something about myself. She took a deep breath, and Marcus saw vulnerability in her eyes, something he had never witnessed in all their years of working together. My king, I stand before this council not just as Luna, but as someone who has formed a bond with this boy. Not a romantic bond, she clarified quickly, but something equally powerful. Ethan lost his parents, and I lost my daughter 3 years ago. The crowd gasped. Few knew of Diana's personal tragedy. She had taken a leave of absence years ago, citing family matters, but she had never spoken publicly about what had happened. Emma was only 2 when she died, Diana said, her voice breaking slightly. A rare illness that even our pack healers couldn't cure. Her father, my mate, couldn't bear the grief. He left the pack, left me, and I've carried that loss alone ever since. Tears streamed down her face now, though she stood tall and proud. When I found Ethan, I saw Emma in his eyes. The same fear, the same desperate need for safety and love. And I realized that while I can never replace his parents, and he can never replace my daughter, perhaps we could help each other heal. Marcus felt the weight of her words settle over him like a mantle. Pack law was important, sacred even, but it existed to protect and strengthen the pack. Diana wasn't just defending a trespasser. She was advocating for an orphaned pack member and revealing her own deep wounds in the process. Luna Diana, Marcus said carefully, are you asking the council to allow Ethan to remain on your territory? I'm asking for more than that, Diana replied, her voice growing stronger. I'm petitioning the council to allow me to become Ethan's legal guardian, to take him into my home, to raise him as my own, to give him the family and pack connection he deserves. The crowd erupted in whispers. This was unprecedented in recent pack history. Guardianship required council approval and represented a serious commitment. Marcus raised his hand for silence. This is a serious request, Luna. Guardianship carries responsibilities and privileges that affect the entire pack structure. The council must deliberate. I understand, Diana said. But while you deliberate, I ask that you consider this. Ethan Cole is not just a lost cub on my territory. He is a member of this pack by birth, a survivor of tragedy, and a young wolf who deserves the chance to grow up surrounded by his own kind. If we turn him away now, we abandon one of our own. We become no better than the humans who failed him." Marcus nodded slowly, recognizing the truth in her words. He turned to address the council members, the 7 senior wolves who advised him on pack matters. "Council, we will hear testimony from those who knew Ethan's parents," Marcus announced. "We will investigate Diana's claims and assess whether this guardianship serves the pack's best interests. This meeting is adjourned until tomorrow evening." As the crowd began to disperse, Marcus approached Diana privately. "You should have told me sooner," he said quietly. "I know," Diana admitted, "but I needed to be sure. Sure that Ethan wanted this, sure that I could handle it, sure that it wasn't just grief making me see connections that weren't there. And now you're sure?" Diana met his eyes without hesitation. "Completely. That boy needs a home, Marcus. And I need him just as much as he needs me." The next morning dawned cold and clear over the Cascade wilderness. Ethan Cole sat on the porch of Diana's cabin, a modest structure built of cedar and stone that blended seamlessly into the surrounding forest. He wore borrowed clothes that were slightly too large, and his dark hair stuck up at odd angles. Despite 3 weeks of Diana's care, he still looked thin and wary, like an animal accustomed to running. Diana emerged from the cabin carrying 2 mugs of hot chocolate. She handed one to Ethan and sat beside him, watching the sun rise over the snow-dusted pines. "They're deciding today," Ethan said quietly, "whether I can stay." "Yes," Diana confirmed. "What if they say no?" Diana considered her answer carefully. "Then we'll fight harder." "But Ethan, you need to understand something. Last night I told the entire pack about Emma, about my daughter." Ethan looked at her with wide eyes. "Why?" "I thought you didn't talk about that." "I didn't," Diana said. "For 3 years, I kept that pain locked inside. But when I stood before the council defending your right to stay, I realized something important. Healing isn't about forgetting or moving on. It's about finding new ways to love after loss." "I still dream about my parents," Ethan confessed. "Sometimes I wake up and forget they're gone. Then I remember, and it's like losing them all over again." Diana put her arm around his shoulders. "That never fully goes away, but it gets easier to carry when you're not alone." They sat in comfortable silence, watching a hawk circle overhead. Finally, Ethan spoke again. "If they let me stay, if I can be if you become my guardian, what does that mean exactly?" "It means you would live here with me," Diana explained. "You'd attend the pack school, learn our history and traditions. I'd teach you to control your wolf, to understand your strength and your responsibilities. You'd be part of my family, Ethan, legally and in every way that matters." "And the territory? Your land?" "Would become your home," Diana said simply. "One day, when you're old enough, it would pass to you. That's how it works in our pack. Family takes care of family." Ethan was quiet for a long moment. "My mom used to say that family isn't just blood. It's the people who show up when you need them most." Diana felt tears prick her eyes. "Your mother sounds like she was a wise woman." "She was," Ethan agreed. "She would have liked you." They spent the day preparing for the evening council meeting. Diana helped Ethan practice his testimony, coaching him on how to address the council and explain his situation. She wanted the pack leaders to see him not as a problem to be solved, but as a young wolf deserving of their protection and support. As the sun began to set, they made their way to the council clearing. Pack members had already gathered, more than the previous night. News of Diana's revelation had spread quickly, and many were curious to see how the council would rule. Marcus stood at the center of the clearing, flanked by the 7 council members. His expression was neutral, giving nothing away. Diana and Ethan approached together, and Diana felt the boy's hand slip into hers. She squeezed it reassuringly. Luna, Diana Ashworth, and Ethan Cole, Marcus began formally. The council has deliberated on your petition for guardianship. We have heard testimony from those who knew Ethan's parents, reviewed PAC law regarding orphaned members, and considered the unique circumstances of this case. Diana's heart pounded. Everything hung in the balance now. Before we render our decision, Marcus continued, the council would like to hear from Ethan directly. Young Wolf, do you understand what guardianship means? Do you truly wish to become part of Diana's family? Ethan stepped forward, and Diana was proud to see him stand tall despite his nervousness. Yes, Alpha King. I understand. For months I've been alone, trying to figure out what I am and where I belong. Diana found me when I had given up hope. She fed me, taught me, and showed me kindness when I had no right to expect any. His voice grew stronger as he continued. My parents died loving this pack and this land. When I came back here, I wasn't trying to break rules or disrespect anyone's territory. I just needed to feel close to them again. Diana gave me that chance. She gave me a reason to hope for a future instead of just surviving day to day. He turned to look at Diana. She told me about her daughter, about Emma. I can never replace Emma, and Diana can never replace my parents. But maybe we can build something new together. A family born from loss but strengthened by choice. The clearing was silent, except for the wind through the pines. Several pack members wiped at their eyes, moved by the young wolf's words. Marcus exchanged glances with the council members, then stepped forward. Ethan Cole, by blood you are Silverwood Pack. Your parents served this pack with honor, and their loss in the mudslide was a tragedy we all share. You should never have been forced to face your first shift alone, and for that, we have failed you. He paused, and Diana held her breath. However, Marcus continued, the council recognizes that sometimes the strongest bonds are those we choose, rather than those we're born into. Luna Diana has demonstrated exceptional character in caring for you these past weeks, and in revealing her own grief to advocate for your well-being. Marcus's stern expression softened slightly. Therefore, the council unanimously approves this guardianship petition. Ethan Cole, you are hereby placed under the legal guardianship of Luna Diana Ashworth. You will live on her territory, carry her family name if you choose, and receive all the rights and protections afforded to pack members in good standing. The crowd erupted in cheers and howls of approval. Diana felt tears streaming down her face as Ethan turned to her with an expression of pure joy and relief. Furthermore, Marcus added, raising his voice to be heard over the celebration, the council wishes to acknowledge Luna Diana's courage in sharing her story. Loss is something we all face, and by speaking openly about her daughter, Diana has reminded us that strength isn't about hiding our pain. It's about transforming it into compassion for others. He approached Diana and Ethan, speaking more quietly now. You have the pack's full support, both of you. Diana bowed her head respectfully. Thank you, my king. Your wisdom honors us. As the formal proceedings ended, pack members surged forward to congratulate them. Older wolves who had known Ethan's parents embraced him with tears in their eyes. Younger pack members his age introduced themselves, excited to welcome a new friend. Diana watched it all with a full heart, seeing Ethan slowly relax and smile, truly smile, for the first time since she'd found him. Eleanor Nightshade, one of the elder council members, approached Diana with a knowing look. You did well tonight, Luna. That boy needs you, and unless I'm much mistaken, you need him just as much. You're not mistaken, Diana admitted. I spent 3 years trying to outrun my grief. But Ethan showed me that healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means finding new ways to love. Eleanor patted her arm gently. Emma would be proud of you. And Robert and Sarah would be grateful that their son found his way home to someone who truly sees him. As the celebration continued into the night, Diana and Ethan eventually slipped away from the crowd, making their way back through the forest to what was now officially their home. The moon rose full and bright above the trees, illuminating their path with silver light. "Diana," Ethan said as they walked, "can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Will you tell me about Emma sometime? I'd like to know about her." Diana felt her throat tighten with emotion, but it was a good pain, the kind that comes with letting light into long, dark places. "I'd like that very much. And I'll tell you more stories about your parents, too. We'll keep their memories alive together." They reached the cabin and stood on the porch for a moment, looking out at the vast expanse of forest that was now Ethan's home. "I was so scared," Ethan confessed. "When I ran from my aunt's house, when I was living in that drainage pipe, when Diana first found me, I thought I'd never feel safe again." "And now?" Diana asked gently. Ethan was quiet for a moment, then turned to her with clear eyes. "Now I think maybe I can learn to trust again. Maybe I can learn to be part of something bigger than just survival." Diana pulled him into a hug, and for the first time in 3 years, she felt something shift inside her chest, a loosening of the tight knot of grief she'd carried for so long. "We'll learn together," she promised, "one day at a time." The weeks following the council's decision brought significant changes to both Diana and Ethan's lives. The transition wasn't always smooth. Ethan struggled with nightmares about the mudslide, and Diana sometimes found herself overwhelmed by the responsibilities of parenthood. But they faced each challenge together, learning to communicate, to compromise, and to create new traditions that honored their pasts while building toward their future. Marcus assigned Eleanor Nightshade as their family mentor, an experienced wolf who had raised several adopted cubs herself. Eleanor visited weekly, offering guidance on everything from managing Ethan's education to navigating the complex emotions of blended family dynamics. "Remember," Eleanor told Diana during one such visit, "guardianship isn't about being perfect. It's about showing up consistently, especially when things get hard." Diana took those words to heart. When Ethan came home from PAC school upset because other students asked invasive questions about his parents, Diana didn't try to fix it immediately. Instead, she sat with him, acknowledged his feelings, and helped him develop responses that felt authentic to him. "You don't owe anyone your story," she told him. "Your grief belongs to you. Share what feels right, when it feels right, with people who've earned your trust." Ethan also brought new energy to Diana's life. His questions about PAC history prompted her to revisit old texts and traditions she'd taken for granted. His enthusiasm for learning combat skills pushed her to improve her own training, and his simple presence, the sound of him moving around the cabin, the sight of his homework spread across the kitchen table, filled spaces that had been empty for too long. One afternoon in early spring, they were working together in the garden behind the cabin. Diana had decided to plant vegetables and herbs, partly for practical purposes and partly as a therapeutic activity they could share. "My mom had a garden," Ethan said, carefully placing tomato seedlings in the prepared soil. "She grew these huge pumpkins every year. Dad would carve them into wolf shapes for Halloween." Diana smiled, continuing to work beside him. "That sounds like a wonderful tradition. Maybe we could try growing pumpkins this year and see if we can continue it." Ethan looked up, surprise and hope mixing in his expression. "Really? You wouldn't mind?" "Mind. Ethan, your parents' traditions are part of who you are. I want you to keep those connections alive. We can honor Emma's memory and your parents' memory. Love isn't a finite resource that runs out when you share it." They worked in comfortable silence for a while, hands in the earth, surrounded by the forest that was slowly coming alive with spring. Birds called from the trees, and somewhere in the distance, they could hear the rush of the creek that marked the eastern boundary of Diana's, their territory. "I've been thinking," Ethan said eventually, "about what you said at the council meeting, about healing not being about forgetting." "Yes? I think you're right. But I also think healing means letting yourself be happy again without feeling guilty about it. Diana sat back on her heels, looking at this remarkable young wolf who somehow seemed wiser than his years. Where did you learn that? Ethan shrugged. My mom used to say something similar. She lost her brother when she was young, and she told me once that the best way to honor people we've lost is to live fully, not to diminish our own lives out of some misguided loyalty to their memory. Your mother was very wise, Diana said softly. So are you, Ethan replied. You've taught me that it's okay to be sad sometimes, but it's also okay to laugh and hope and plan for the future. I couldn't do that before I met you. Diana felt tears prick her eyes, but they were good tears, tears of gratitude and healing. You've taught me things too, Ethan. You've reminded me what it means to be brave enough to love again despite the risk of loss. They finished planting the garden as the afternoon sun stretched their shadows long across the cleared ground. Diana showed Ethan how to water the seedlings properly, how to recognize weeds from desired plants, and how to protect young vegetables from deer and rabbits that might wander through. This garden is going to need constant attention, Diana explained. Watering, weeding, protecting it from pests. Some days it will feel like too much work for what you get back. But when harvest time comes and you taste vegetables you grew with your own hands, you'll understand why it's worth it. Ethan nodded thoughtfully. Kind of like family. Diana laughed, surprised and delighted by his insight. Exactly like family. It takes work, patience, and dedication, but the rewards are immeasurable. As spring progressed into summer, Ethan settled more fully into pack life. He joined the junior training program, where young wolves learned combat techniques, territory management, and pack law. His instructors reported that while he was still catching up academically after months of interrupted education, he showed exceptional promise in practical skills. Diana attended every training demonstration, cheering louder than anyone when Ethan successfully completed his first solo patrol of their territory boundaries. She photographed his progression through the ranks, documenting moments both significant and mundane. His first successful hunt, his birthday celebration, the evening he came home covered in mud after wrestling with friends during a rainstorm. Marcus noticed the change in Diana as well. The Luna who had once been so focused on maintaining professional distance now showed up to council meetings with dirt under her fingernails from gardening and laughter lines around her eyes. She was still competent and authoritative in her role, but she'd regained a warmth that had been missing since her daughter's death. Guardianship agrees with you, Marcus observed during a private meeting about territory management. Diana smiled. It does. Though I won't pretend it's always easy. Last week, Ethan decided to experiment with his shifting abilities and got stuck halfway transformed for 3 hours. We had to call Eleanor for help. Marcus chuckled. All young wolves go through that phase. At least he's doing it with proper supervision now, rather than alone in the wilderness. True, Diana agreed. I keep thinking about what might have happened if I hadn't found him when I did, or if I'd simply reported him to the council without taking time to understand his story. But you did find him, and you did take that time, Marcus pointed out. You made choices that honored both pack law and pack compassion. That's what good leadership looks like. Diana appreciated his words but felt compelled to be honest. I wasn't thinking about leadership when I brought Ethan food that first time. I was thinking about Emma, about loss, about a young wolf who deserved better than what life had given him. Sometimes the best leadership comes from our humanity rather than our authority, Marcus replied. You've shown the pack that strength includes vulnerability, that rules exist to serve our well-being rather than simply to be obeyed. Those are valuable lessons. Their conversation was interrupted by a commotion outside the council building. Diana and Marcus rushed out to find Ethan and several other young wolves gathered in an excited cluster, all talking at once. What's going on? Diana asked, gently separating Ethan from the group. Diana, you won't believe it. Ethan's eyes were bright with excitement. We found it during patrol practice, the old settlement site where my parents' cabin stood. Most of it was destroyed in the mudslide, but there's a root cellar that survived. And inside. He pulled something from his backpack, a waterproof container covered in dried mud. We found this. The instructor said it belonged to the Cole family. Diana's breath caught. Have you opened it? Not yet. I wanted to wait. Wanted you to be there when I did. They returned to the cabin together, the container sitting on the kitchen table between them like a bridge between past and present. Diana made tea while Ethan carefully cleaned the mud from the container's exterior, revealing a metal box designed to withstand the elements. Whatever's inside has been protected, Diana said encouragingly. Your parents clearly wanted to preserve it. Ethan's hands trembled slightly as he worked the latch open. Inside, wrapped in multiple layers of plastic, were several items: a leather journal, a collection of photographs, and a sealed envelope with Ethan's name written on the front in his mother's handwriting. She wrote me a letter, Ethan whispered, staring at the envelope as if it might disappear. Would you like privacy to read it? Diana asked gently. Ethan shook his head. No. Your family. I want you here. He carefully opened the envelope and unfolded several pages of neat handwriting. His eyes filled with tears as he began to read silently, then aloud. My dearest Ethan, if you're reading this, then something has happened to your father and me. I write this letter hoping you'll never need it. But a mother's instinct tells me to prepare for possibilities I don't want to imagine. First, know that we love you beyond measure. You are our greatest joy, our proudest achievement, our hope for the future. Whatever has happened, it is not your fault. Life brings unexpected storms, and sometimes even the strongest trees fall. Ethan paused, wiping his eyes. Diana reached across the table and took his free hand, offering silent support. He continued reading. I want you to know some things about our family, about yourself, and about the pack. Your father and I chose to build our life on the edge of pack territory because we valued both community and independence. We wanted you to grow up connected to pack traditions, while also learning to think for yourself, to question respectfully, to forge your own path. The journal in this box belonged to your great-grandmother. She was a Luna in her time, wise and strong. Read her words when you need guidance. Look at these photographs when you need to remember that you come from a long line of wolves who loved fiercely and lived bravely. But most importantly, Ethan, I need you to understand this. If we are gone, you are not alone. Family isn't just blood. It's the people who show up when you need them most. The pack will care for you. Find the wolves who see you, truly see you, and let them into your heart. Don't let grief make you small or afraid. Your father and I would want you to live fully, love deeply, and honor our memory by becoming the best version of yourself. You were born during the first snowfall of winter, and your father said you came into this world with your eyes wide open, taking everything in with fierce curiosity. Keep those eyes open, sweetheart. Keep looking for beauty even in difficult times. Keep searching for your place in this pack and in this world. We will always be with you, in the wind through the pines, in the howl that calls pack members home, in the strength you discover within yourself when you need it most. Live well, love hard, and know that being our son was the greatest privilege of our lives. With all our love, Mom and Dad. By the time Ethan finished reading, both he and Diana were crying openly. He set the letter down carefully, then picked up the journal and photographs, examining each one with a mixture of sadness and wonder. She knew, Ethan said quietly. Somehow she knew something might happen, and she wanted to make sure I'd be okay. She wanted you to know you were loved, Diana said. And she wanted you to understand that healing is possible, that you could build a life even if they weren't there to see it. Ethan looked at Diana with red-rimmed eyes. She wrote about finding wolves who see me. You see me, Diana. You saw me even when I was just a scared kid living in a drainage pipe. Diana moved around the table and pulled him into a hug. And you've let me see you clearly, taught me to see myself more clearly too. We're both better for having found each other. They spent the rest of the evening going through the photographs, images of Ethan as a baby, his parents on their wedding day, family gatherings with pack members who had also died in the mudslide. Diana listened as Ethan shared stories about the people in the pictures, his voice alternating between laughter and tears. I was afraid I'd start forgetting, Ethan admitted. Forgetting what they looked like, how they sounded, the specific way Mom laughed or Dad told terrible jokes. Now you have these to help you remember, Diana said, and you have me to listen whenever you want to talk about them. Memory isn't something we hold alone. It's something we share and preserve together. The discovery of the time capsule marked a turning point in Ethan's healing journey. Having tangible connections to his parents, the photographs, the journal, his mother's letter, seemed to give him permission to fully embrace his new life with Diana while honoring his past. He began sharing more stories about his parents with Diana, and she reciprocated by opening up more about Emma. They created a small altar in the cabin with photographs of those they'd lost, lighting candles on significant dates and sharing memories that kept their loved ones present in their daily lives. The great-grandmother's journal became a source of wisdom for both of them. The former Luna had written extensively about leadership, family, and the balance between tradition and progress. Ethan devoured her words, often reading passages aloud during their evening meals. "Listen to this," he said one night, his finger marking a place in the worn journal. She writes, "A pack is strongest not when all its members think alike, but when diverse perspectives unite around common values. The alpha who demands absolute conformity leads a pack of followers. The alpha who encourages thoughtful dissent leads a pack of engaged citizens." Diana smiled. "Your great-grandmother sounds like she would have given Marcus a run for his money in council meetings." "She probably did," Ethan agreed. "There are entries here about debates she had with the alpha of her time. She wasn't afraid to challenge authority when she thought it was wrong, but she did it respectfully, with the pack's best interests at heart." "That's something worth learning," Diana said. "Power without accountability leads to tyranny, but challenge without respect leads to chaos. Your great-grandmother understood the balance." As summer progressed toward fall, Diana and Ethan fell into comfortable rhythms. Morning runs through their territory, where Diana taught Ethan to read the forest, tracking prey, identifying territorial markers, understanding the subtle signs that indicated the health of their land. Afternoon training sessions, where Ethan's skills in combat and strategy steadily improved. Evenings spent cooking dinner together, doing homework, or simply sitting on the porch watching the sun set over the mountains. The pack noticed the transformation in both of them. Diana, once so controlled and professional, now showed up to council meetings with Ethan in tow, teaching him through observation how leadership actually functioned. Ethan, once a frightened boy surviving alone in the wilderness, now moved through pack gatherings with growing confidence, making friends and finding his place in the community. Eleanor Nightshade observed their progress with satisfaction. "You've both exceeded my expectations," she told Diana during one of their mentorship sessions. "I've seen many guardianship arrangements over the years, and the most successful ones are those where both parties grow and change together. You're not trying to recreate what you lost. You're building something new that honors your past while embracing your present." "It hasn't always been easy," Diana admitted. "There are still hard days, moments when grief catches me off guard, or when Ethan struggles with anger about what happened to his parents." "Of course," Eleanor agreed. "Healing isn't linear. But what matters is that you're both committed to the process, to showing up for each other even when it's difficult." One particularly challenging day came in late September, on what would have been Emma's 5th birthday. Diana woke with a familiar heaviness in her chest, the weight of grief she'd learned to carry but never quite set down. She went through the motions of making breakfast, but Ethan noticed immediately that something was wrong. "Are you okay?" he asked carefully. Diana considered deflecting, pretending everything was fine. But she'd learned from Ethan that vulnerability wasn't weakness. It was the foundation of authentic connection. "Today is Emma's birthday," she said quietly. "Or would have been. I always struggle on this day." Ethan nodded, understanding crossing his features. "What did you used to do? To mark the day?" "I used to ignore it," Diana admitted. "Throw myself into work, avoid thinking about it. But that never actually helped." "What if we did something different this year?" Ethan suggested. "Something that celebrates her life instead of just mourning her death?" Diana looked at him with surprise and gratitude. "Like what?" "Well," Ethan said thoughtfully, "you told me Emma loved flowers, right? What if we took flowers to her resting place and told stories about her? And then maybe we could do something she would have enjoyed. Bake her favorite treats, or go somewhere she loved." The simplicity and wisdom of his suggestion moved Diana deeply. "I think that's a beautiful idea." They spent the morning gathering wildflowers from their territory, creating a vibrant bouquet of asters, goldenrod, and late-blooming lupines. Diana led Ethan to a quiet grove where she'd scattered Emma's ashes 3 years ago, a place of beauty and peace where sunlight filtered through old-growth cedars. They sat together in the grove, and Diana told stories about Emma, her laugh, her fascination with butterflies, the way she'd insisted on wearing her wolf ears, a costume headband, everywhere she went. Ethan listened attentively, asking questions and making observations that showed he truly wanted to know about this little girl who'd never had the chance to grow up. "She sounds like she was brave," Ethan said. "Even when she was sick, even when she was scared, she kept being herself." "She was," Diana agreed. "She taught me so much about living fully in each moment, not taking a single day for granted. Kind of like my mom's letter," Ethan observed, "about keeping your eyes open and looking for beauty even in difficult times." Diana nodded, seeing the connection. "Yes, the people we love leave us with gifts, lessons, memories, examples of how to live well. Emma taught me about joy. Your parents taught you about resilience and family. We honor them by carrying those lessons forward." They left the flowers in the grove and returned to the cabin, where they spent the afternoon baking lemon cookies, Emma's favorite. Ethan proved to be a surprisingly capable baker, following Diana's directions with careful attention to detail. "My mom and I used to bake together," he explained. "It was one of our things. She said cooking was like chemistry, but you gotta eat the results." Diana laughed, delighted by this glimpse into Ethan's past. She was right, and I think she and Emma would have been friends if they'd had the chance to meet. As they pulled the cookies from the oven, Ethan turned to Diana with a serious expression. "I know today was hard for you, but I want you to know that it's okay to be sad. You don't have to be strong all the time just because you're Luna or because you're raising me. I can handle your grief just like you've handled mine." Diana felt tears spring to her eyes. This young wolf, barely past his 16th birthday, had somehow learned lessons about emotional maturity that many adults never mastered. "Thank you, Ethan. That means more than you know." They ate cookies on the porch as the sun set, talking about Emma and Ethan's parents, sharing memories and laughter along with tears. It was painful, but also healing, a way of keeping their loved ones present, while acknowledging the reality of their absence. As fall deepened into winter, the pack prepared for the annual solstice celebration, a tradition that brought all members together to mark the longest night of the year and celebrate the return of light. Diana had always participated in the formal ceremonies, but this year felt different. This year she had Ethan, and the celebration felt more personal, more meaningful. Marcus approached her a week before solstice with a significant request. "Luna Diana, the council would like you to lead the remembrance ceremony this year. the portion of the celebration where we honor pack members who've died. Diana felt a flutter of anxiety. The remembrance ceremony was deeply important, a sacred time when the pack collectively mourned their losses and found comfort in community. She'd never led it before. "Marcus, I'm honored. But why me? Elder Thomas has always led that ceremony." "Thomas suggested you," Marcus explained. "He believes your journey this year, your openness about Emma, your guardianship of Ethan, your willingness to transform grief into compassion, makes you the ideal person to guide the pack through that ritual." Diana took a deep breath. "I'll do it. But I'd like Ethan to participate as well. He's lost his parents, and he deserves to be part of honoring their memory publicly." Marcus nodded approvingly. Agreed. This could be an important step in his integration into the pack as well. Diana and Ethan spent the week preparing for the ceremony. Diana explained the traditional elements, the lighting of memorial candles, the reading of names, the communal howl that sent the pack's love and remembrance out into the universe. Ethan listened carefully, occasionally offering suggestions that Diana incorporated into their planning. "In my mom's family," Ethan said, "they had a tradition of sharing one happy memory about each person they'd lost. Not just mourning that they were gone, but celebrating that they had lived." "I love that," Diana said. "It fits perfectly with what I want to convey. That grief and gratitude can coexist. That we honor our dead by living well." The night of the solstice celebration arrived cold and clear, with snow crunching under paws and boots as pack members gathered in the ceremonial clearing. Hundreds of candles flickered in the darkness, creating pools of warm light against the winter night. Diana stood at the center with Ethan beside her, both dressed in traditional ceremonial robes. Marcus opened the celebration with the customary welcome, acknowledging the longest night and the promise of returning light. Then he turned the ceremony over to Diana. "Brothers and sisters of Silverwood Pack," Diana began, her voice carrying across the silent crowd. "Tonight we gather not just to mark the winter solstice, but to honor those who have walked before us, those whose absence shapes our present as surely as their presence once did." She paused, letting her words settle. "This past year has taught me profound lessons about loss and healing. Many of you know that I lost my daughter, Emma, 3 years ago. For a long time, I believed that healing meant moving past that loss, leaving it behind. But a wise young wolf taught me differently." She gestured to Ethan. "Healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means finding new ways to carry our love forward, to transform grief into compassion, to honor those we've lost by living fully and loving bravely." Diana lit the first memorial candle. "Tonight, we will speak the names of those who died this past year, including the 17 pack members lost in the mudslide. But we will do more than simply mourn. We will share memories that celebrate their lives, that keep their spirits present among us." One by one, pack members came forward. They lit candles and spoke names, following each name with a brief but vivid memory. Laughter mixed with tears as people remembered quirks, jokes, kindnesses, and the small moments that had made their loved ones unique. When it came time to honor the mudslide victims, Ethan stepped forward. His voice shook slightly, but held steady as he lit 2 candles. "Sarah and Robert Cole, my parents. Mom taught me that family isn't just blood. It's the people who show up when you need them most. Dad showed me that strength includes gentleness, that the strongest wolves are those who use their power to protect rather than dominate." He paused, gathering himself. "I remember Sunday mornings when Dad would make these terrible pancakes, always burned on one side, and Mom would pretend they were delicious. I remember Mom singing while she worked in the garden, usually off-key but always with enthusiasm. I remember feeling safe, loved, and valued." Tears streamed down his face, but his voice remained clear. They died serving this pack, caring for pack members in that northern settlement. And while I miss them every single day, I'm grateful for every moment we had together. I honor them by being the wolf they raised me to be, by choosing community over isolation, love over fear, growth over stagnation. The pack howled softly, a sound of support and shared grief. Diana stepped beside Ethan, placing a hand on his shoulder as he wiped his eyes. Other pack members came forward with their own remembrances of the mudslide victims, creating a tapestry of memory that honored each individual life. The ceremony stretched long into the night, but no one left. This was the power of pack, the willingness to bear witness to each other's pain and joy, to hold space for the full spectrum of human emotion. Finally, when the last candle had been lit and the last memory shared, Diana led the pack in the traditional solstice howl, a long, sustained note that rose toward the stars and echoed through the mountains. It was a sound of mourning, but also of hope, of ending, but also of beginning. As the howl faded, Marcus stepped forward again. Luna Diana, on behalf of the pack, I thank you for leading us through this sacred ritual. Your courage and wisdom have given us a new way to honor our dead while affirming our commitment to life. The pack erupted in applause and howls of approval. Diana felt overwhelmed by the response, humbled by the trust they'd placed in her. As the crowd began to disperse, moving toward the feast that would continue the celebration, Eleanor Nightshade approached Diana and Ethan. You both did beautifully. The pack needed this, needed to see that grief doesn't have to be carried in isolation, that sharing our losses strengthens rather than weakens us. Ethan deserves most of the credit, Diana said, pulling him close. He's taught me as much about healing as I've taught him. Ethan ducked his head, embarrassed but pleased. We taught each other. That's what family does, right? Right, Eleanor agreed warmly. And speaking of family, there's someone who'd like to meet you both. She gestured toward an older woman standing at the edge of the clearing, someone Diana didn't immediately recognize. Ethan, the woman said, her voice thick with emotion. I don't know if you remember me. I'm Margaret, your grandmother's sister. I was at your parents' wedding, and I held you when you were just a few days old. Ethan's eyes widened. Your family. Real family. I am, Margaret confirmed. I've been living on the coast, and I only recently learned about the guardianship arrangement. I wanted to meet the Luna who took in my great-nephew, and tell her thank you for doing what I couldn't. Diana felt a moment of panic. Was this woman here to challenge the guardianship? To take Ethan away? Margaret must have sensed her fear because she quickly added, I'm not here to disrupt anything. I can see how happy Ethan is, how well cared for. I just wanted to reconnect, to be part of his life if he'll let me. Extended family, not replacement family. Ethan looked to Diana, silently asking for guidance. Diana squeezed his shoulder supportively. That's entirely up to you, Ethan. But I think having more people who love you is never a bad thing. Ethan nodded slowly, then extended his hand to Margaret. I'd like to know you. Maybe you could tell me stories about my grandmother? I never got to meet her. Margaret's face lit up with joy. I would love that, and I have photographs if you'd like to see them. Your grandmother was quite a character. They talked for a while, Diana watching as Ethan cautiously opened himself to this new connection. It reminded her that healing wasn't a destination, but an ongoing journey. That new relationships didn't erase old ones, but added depth and complexity to the tapestry of life. Winter gave way to spring, and with it came new growth, both in the forest and in Diana and Ethan's relationship. The guardianship that had begun with uncertainty and grief had blossomed into genuine family bonds, strong enough to weather disagreements and challenges while remaining fundamentally secure. Ethan thrived in pack school, excelling particularly in history and territorial management. His instructors reported that he had a natural gift for understanding pack dynamics and seeing solutions to complex problems. Diana encouraged his interests, often discussing pack politics and strategy with him during their evening meals. "What do you think about the Council's proposal to expand our northern border?" Diana asked one night, testing his analytical skills. Ethan considered the question carefully. "I think it makes sense strategically. It would give us access to better hunting grounds and create a buffer between us and the rogue territories. But I'm concerned about the resource commitment. We'd need to patrol a larger area, which means either pulling wolves from other duties or recruiting new members." Diana nodded approvingly. "Excellent analysis. What would you recommend?" "A phased expansion," Ethan suggested. "Start with a small section, establish solid patrols, and only extend further once we've proven we can maintain security. It's slower, but it's more sustainable." "That's almost exactly what I proposed to Marcus," Diana said with a smile. "You're thinking like a leader, Ethan." Ethan flushed with pride, but also ducked his head. "I don't know about that. I just try to think about what's best for the pack long term." "That's exactly what leaders do," Diana assured him. Their relationship deepened in other ways too. Diana taught Ethan to drive, resulting in several hair-raising practice sessions that left them both laughing and slightly traumatized. Ethan introduced Diana to modern music and technology, patiently explaining streaming services and social media to someone who'd largely avoided those innovations. They gardened together, watching their vegetables grow from seedlings to harvest. True to his word, Ethan grew enormous pumpkins that fall, and Diana learned to carve them in wolf shapes just as his father had done. They took photographs of their creations, adding them to the collection of family memories they were building together. Margaret became a regular visitor, bringing stories and photographs of Ethan's maternal lineage. She and Diana formed an unexpected friendship, bonding over their shared love for Ethan and their mutual grief for the losses they'd experienced. Margaret's presence added another layer of family support, showing Ethan that his world could expand to include multiple sources of love and connection. On the 1-year anniversary of the guardianship, Marcus called a small gathering to formally recognize the success of the arrangement. Pack leadership, close friends, and family members assembled in the council building for what Marcus described as a ceremonial acknowledgement of growth and commitment. Luna Diana Ashworth and Ethan Cole. Marcus began formally. 1 year ago, you petitioned this council for guardianship. At the time, you were both wounded by loss, seeking healing and connection. The council approved that petition with hope, but also with some uncertainty about how such an unconventional arrangement would develop. He paused, looking at them with genuine warmth. "I'm pleased to report that you have exceeded every expectation. Diana, you have shown our pack what it means to lead with both strength and vulnerability, to hold space for grief while still moving forward. Ethan, you have demonstrated remarkable resilience, transforming trauma into growth and embracing your role in this pack with maturity beyond your years." Marcus gestured to Eleanor, who stepped forward carrying 2 beautifully crafted wooden boxes. These contain gifts from the pack, tokens of our appreciation and recognition. But more importantly, we want to acknowledge that what began as guardianship has clearly become something deeper, true family, chosen and cherished. He handed the boxes to Diana and Ethan. Diana opened hers to find a hand-carved wolf figurine holding a pup, along with a leather-bound journal. "For recording your journey," Marcus explained, "and for passing wisdom to future generations, as your great-grandmother did." Ethan's box contained a compass engraved with his family name and a collection of seeds. "The compass to help you find your path," Marcus said, "and the seeds to help you grow roots in the territory you now call home." Both Diana and Ethan were visibly moved. Diana spoke first, her voice thick with emotion. "Thank you, Alpha, and thank you to the pack for trusting me with Ethan's care. This year has transformed both of us in ways I never anticipated. I came into guardianship thinking I was helping a lost young wolf find his way home. What I didn't realize was that I was lost too, and Ethan helped me find my way back to myself." Ethan wiped at his eyes, then stepped forward. "A year ago, I was alone and scared. living in a drainage pipe and convinced I'd lost everything that mattered. Diana found me, fed me, taught me, and showed me that family isn't about DNA. It's about who chooses to love you even when it's hard. She gave me a home, a future, and hope. I'll spend the rest of my life trying to deserve that gift. Eleanor spoke up, her voice carrying the weight of decades of pack wisdom. What you two have built together is a testament to the resilience of love. Chosen families are not lesser than blood families. They are equally valid, equally powerful, and sometimes even stronger because they are built on conscious commitment rather than obligation. The small gathering applauded, and pack members came forward to offer their personal congratulations. Diana noticed how naturally Ethan now moved through these social situations, accepting embraces and well wishes with genuine warmth. The frightened boy she'd found a year ago had transformed into a confident young wolf who belonged. As the ceremony concluded and people began to leave, Margaret approached them with a thoughtful expression. "I have something for both of you," she said, pulling out an old photograph album. "These belong to Sarah, Ethan's mother. I've been organizing her things, and I found pictures from when she was young, around Ethan's age." Ethan took the album carefully, opening it to reveal images of his mother as a teenager. Diana looked over his shoulder, struck by the resemblance between mother and son. The same dark hair, the same thoughtful expression, the same spark of determination in their eyes. "She was beautiful," Diana said softly. "She was strong," Margaret corrected gently. "Beautiful too, but mostly strong. She survived her own losses, her brother's death, her mother's long illness, and she came through it determined to live fully. That's what she'd want for Ethan. That's what she'd want for both of you." Ethan carefully turned the pages, drinking in these new glimpses of his mother's past. "Thank you for this," he told Margaret, "for bringing pieces of her back to me." "Family takes care of family," Margaret said simply, echoing the words Sarah had once written in her letter. "And you have a good family now, one that honors the past while building the future." As spring turned to summer once again, Diana noticed subtle changes in Ethan. He was approaching his 17th birthday, standing taller, his voice deepening, his features losing the last softness of childhood. He was becoming a young man, and with that transformation came new questions about his future. One evening, as they worked together repairing fence posts along their territory boundary, Ethan broached a subject that had clearly been on his mind. "Diana, I've been thinking about what comes after graduation, about what I want to do with my life." Diana paused her work, giving him her full attention. "Tell me." "I love our territory," Ethan said, gesturing to the forest around them. "I love the work we do managing it, protecting it, helping it thrive. But I also feel like I need to understand more about ecology, conservation, sustainable land management. There's a university program in environmental science that interests me." Diana felt a pang of anticipated loss but pushed it aside. This was about Ethan's growth, not her fears. "That sounds like an excellent path. Tell me more about the program." Ethan's face lit up with enthusiasm as he described the curriculum, the research opportunities, the chance to learn from experts in forest management and wildlife conservation. Diana listened, asking questions and offering encouragement, even as part of her wondered what it would be like when he left for college. "I know it means leaving for a while," Ethan said, as if reading her thoughts. "But I'd come back. This is my home, Diana. This territory, this pack. You. This is where I belong. I just want to bring back knowledge that can help us do better, be better stewards of this land." "That's a beautiful goal," Diana said sincerely. "And I support it completely. Your great-grandmother's journal talks about the importance of seeking knowledge beyond pack boundaries and bringing that wisdom home to strengthen the community." "You really think I should do it?" Ethan asked, seeking confirmation. "I think you should follow your passion," Diana replied. I'll miss you terribly when you're gone, but that's what parents do. We raise our children to launch them into the world, not to keep them with us forever. Ethan was quiet for a moment, then said softly, "You called yourself my parent." Diana realized what she'd said and felt a moment of uncertainty. "Is that okay? I know I'm not." "It's more than okay," Ethan interrupted. "You've been my parent in every way that matters, and I'd like to make it official." "Official?" Ethan took a deep breath. "I want to formally take your family name. I've been thinking about it for months. Robert and Sarah Cole will always be my parents, and I'll always honor their memory. But Diana Ashworth raised me, taught me, loved me when I had nothing. I want to be Ethan Cole Ashworth, if that's okay with you." Diana felt tears spring to her eyes. "Ethan, I would be honored beyond measure. There's a legal process, right? Something we have to do through the Pack Council." "Yes," Diana confirmed, her voice shaking with emotion. "We'd petition the council, and they'd formalize the name change in Pack records. But are you sure? This is a significant decision." "I'm completely sure," Ethan said firmly. "You've given me a home, a future, and a family. I want the world to know that we belong to each other." They finished their fence repairs in comfortable silence, both processing the emotional weight of the conversation. When they returned to the cabin that evening, Diana immediately contacted Marcus to begin the formal process. The council hearing took place 2 weeks later, a much simpler affair than the original guardianship petition. Marcus reviewed the request and asked Ethan several questions to ensure he understood the significance of taking Diana's family name. "This isn't just about legal documents," Marcus explained. "In our pack, names carry history, legacy, and obligation. By taking the Ashworth name, you're not just joining Diana's family. You're joining a lineage that stretches back generations, with all the responsibilities and privileges that entails." "I understand," Ethan said clearly, "and I accept those responsibilities. The Ashworth line has served this pack with honor. I intend to continue that tradition." The council approved the petition unanimously, and just like that, Ethan Cole became Ethan Cole Ashworth. Diana framed the official document and hung it in the cabin, a tangible symbol of their chosen family bond. Margaret attended the small celebration they held afterward, bringing champagne and lemon cookies in honor of Emma, who Diana had told her about in detail. "Sarah would be so proud," Margaret said, raising her glass in a toast. "She always believed family was defined by love and commitment, not just biology. You're living proof of that truth." The summer passed quickly, filled with preparations for Ethan's departure to university in the fall. Diana helped him research housing options, purchase supplies, and navigate the financial aid process. She tried to be excited rather than sad, focusing on the opportunities this represented, rather than the empty space he'd leave behind. The night before Ethan was scheduled to leave, they sat together on the porch, watching the stars emerge one by one in the darkening sky. The forest around them was alive with summer sounds: crickets, owls, and in the distance, the howl of wolves on patrol. "I'm scared," Ethan admitted quietly. "Not of the academics or being away from home, but scared that I'll come back and things will have changed so much that I won't fit anymore." Diana considered her response carefully. "Things will change. You'll change. That's the whole point of education and growth. And I'll change too. But the core of who we are to each other, that won't change. You'll always have a home here, Ethan. This cabin, this territory, this family, it's yours for as long as you want it." "Promise?" Ethan asked, and for a moment he sounded like the frightened 16-year-old she'd first found, rather than the confident young man he'd become. "I promise," Diana said firmly. "Distance doesn't diminish love. If anything, it proves its strength. We've built something real here. Something that can withstand separation and growth and all the challenges life throws at us." They sat in silence for a while. Then Ethan spoke again. "You know what's funny? When I first met you, I thought you were scary. You had this Luna authority thing going on, all serious and intimidating." Diana laughed. "And now?" "Now I know you're scary in completely different ways," Ethan teased. "Like when you try to use social media, or when you insist on calling it the Google instead of just Google." "I do not," Diana protested, but she was laughing too. "You absolutely do. And you know what else? You snore, loudly. I can hear it from my room." "I do not snore." "You really do, but I love you anyway." The words hung in the air between them, simple but profound. They'd said them before, of course, but somehow tonight they carried extra weight. A declaration and a promise as Ethan prepared to step into the next phase of his life. "I love you too," Diana said softly. "More than I ever thought I could love again after losing Emma. You didn't replace her. You couldn't, and I wouldn't want you to. But you gave me a reason to open my heart again, to believe that family could be built as well as born." The morning of Ethan's departure arrived too quickly. Diana helped him load boxes into the truck Marcus had lent them for the drive to campus. Pack members stopped by throughout the morning to say goodbye and offer advice, creating a steady stream of well-wishers that both delayed their departure and warmed Diana's heart. Eleanor brought a care package filled with homemade cookies and practical items like laundry detergent and first aid supplies. "For when you get homesick," she said, hugging Ethan tightly. "And don't hesitate to call if you need anything. The pack takes care of its own, even at a distance." Marcus arrived with a formal letter of recommendation, should Ethan need it for internships or research positions. "Your work on the territorial expansion proposal showed real insight," Marcus told him. "You have a future in pack leadership if you want it. But first, go learn everything you can." Margaret came last, arriving just as they were about to leave. She pressed a small package into Ethan's hands. "From your mother's things," she explained. A compass she carried when she did her own travels before settling down. She always said it helped her find her way home. Ethan opened the package to reveal an antique compass, its brass case worn smooth from years of handling. "Thank you," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I'll keep it with me always." The drive to campus took 3 hours, winding through mountain passes and eventually descending into the valley where the university sprawled across hundreds of acres. Diana helped Ethan move into his dorm room, meeting his roommate, a friendly human student from California, and helping him arrange his space to feel like home. When everything was unpacked and organized, they stood awkwardly in the small room, both aware that this was goodbye, at least for now. "Call me tonight once you're settled," Diana said, struggling to keep her voice steady. "And anytime you need to talk. I don't care what hour, day, or night, I'm here." "I will," Ethan promised, "and I'll come home for fall break. That's only 6 weeks away." Diana pulled him into a tight hug, breathing in the familiar scent of him, pack and family and home. "I'm so proud of you, Ethan. Your parents would be proud too. You've taken everything life threw at you and transformed it into strength and purpose." "Because you showed me how," Ethan said, holding her just as tightly. "Thank you for finding me. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for loving me when I didn't think anyone could." They finally separated, both wiping at tears. Diana forced herself to walk to her truck, to drive away, to let him begin this new chapter. But as she glanced in the rearview mirror, she saw Ethan standing in front of his dorm building, waving until she turned the corner, and he disappeared from view. The drive home felt longer than the drive there. The cabin seemed too quiet when Diana arrived, Ethan's absence a palpable presence. She wandered through rooms that suddenly felt too large, noticing all the small signs of his life there. His favorite mug in the dish drainer, his jacket hanging by the door, the worn spot on the couch where he always sat. Eleanor called that evening, checking on her. "First day is always the hardest," she said with the wisdom of someone who'd launched several children of her own. "It gets easier," Not easy, but easier. I know, Diana said. And I'm happy for him, truly. But the house feels empty. Because it is empty, Eleanor replied practically. But it won't be forever. He'll come home for breaks, for summers, and eventually for good. And in the meantime, you have pack responsibilities and your own life to live. Motherhood doesn't mean putting yourself on hold until your children return. Diana knew Eleanor was right, but knowing didn't make the adjustment any easier. She went through the motions for the next few days, attending council meetings, managing territory patrols, handling the routine business of pack life, but everything felt slightly muted, like she was moving through fog. Then, on the fourth night, her phone rang. Ethan's face appeared on the screen, smiling and animated. Diana, you won't believe what happened in my ecology class today. The professor was talking about sustainable forest management, and I shared some of the techniques we use on our territory. She was so impressed that she asked if I'd be willing to do a presentation about traditional packland stewardship practices. Diana felt warmth spread through her chest as Ethan enthusiastically described his classes, his professors, the new friends he was making. He was thriving, growing, becoming exactly who he was meant to be. That's wonderful, Ethan, she said when he paused for breath. I'm so proud of you. I miss home, Ethan admitted. Miss you, miss the territory, miss pack howls on full moon nights. But I'm doing okay. Better than okay, actually. That's exactly what I needed to hear, Diana said honestly. They talked for over an hour, falling into an easy rhythm that proved Eleanor's wisdom. Distance didn't have to mean disconnection. When they finally said goodnight, Diana felt lighter than she had in days. The weeks turned into months, and Diana and Ethan settled into their new normal. They video called several times a week, sharing the details of their separate lives. Ethan sent pictures of campus, his classwork, weekend hiking trips with new friends. Diana sent updates about pack happenings, photographs of the garden, and screenshots of her increasingly successful attempts to navigate social media. Ethan came home for fall break exactly as promised, bursting through the cabin door with textbooks, dirty laundry, and stories that spilled out faster than Diana could absorb them. They fell back into comfortable routines, morning runs through the territory, collaborative cooking, evening conversations on the porch. You seem different, Diana observed one evening. More confident, more sure of yourself. I feel different, Ethan agreed. Being away has helped me see how special what we have here is. The pack, the land, our family. I took it for granted when I lived here every day. Now I appreciate it more. That's one of the gifts of distance, Diana said. Perspective. The weekend passed too quickly, and soon Diana was driving Ethan back to campus. But this goodbye was easier than the first. They'd proven to themselves and each other that their bond could withstand separation, that love didn't require constant physical proximity. As fall deepened into winter, Diana found herself busier than ever with pack responsibilities. Marcus asked her to lead a committee exploring sustainable development practices for pack territories, work that drew on both traditional wisdom and modern environmental science. Diana threw herself into the project, consulting with Ethan frequently about research and best practices. You're basically doing college-level work, Ethan told her during one of their video calls. You should audit some classes when I'm home on break. The university has community education programs. Diana laughed at first, but the idea took root. Why not continue learning? Age didn't have to mean stagnation. By the time Ethan came home for winter break, Diana had enrolled in an online environmental policy course. Look at us, Ethan said proudly, watching Diana navigate her course materials. A family of lifelong learners. The winter solstice celebration that year felt different to Diana. When she again led the remembrance ceremony, she spoke not just about loss, but about transformation, how grief could become wisdom, how pain could become compassion, how endings could lead to new beginnings. 2 years ago, she told the assembled pack. "I stood before you as a Luna who'd lost her daughter, helping a young wolf who'd lost his parents. We were both broken, both searching for meaning in our losses. But what we found was each other, and through that connection, we found healing." She gestured to Ethan, who stood beside her. "This young wolf taught me that family isn't defined by biology, but by commitment. That strength includes vulnerability, and that opening your heart to love again, even after devastating loss, is the bravest thing anyone can do." The pack howled their approval, and Diana saw in their faces recognition of their own journeys through loss and healing. Pain was universal, but so was resilience. So was love. Spring brought Ethan home for an extended break, and he arrived with news that would change both their futures. "Diana, I've been offered a summer research position," he said excitedly. "Working with a professor who studies traditional ecological knowledge in indigenous and pack communities. It would mean traveling to different pack territories across the country, documenting their land management practices." "That's incredible," Diana said, genuinely thrilled for him. "What an opportunity." "There's more," Ethan continued. "The professor asked if she could interview you as part of the research. Apparently, our territory management has gotten attention in academic circles. You're considered an expert in sustainable forest stewardship." Diana was stunned. "Me? An expert?" "Yes, you," Ethan said, laughing at her surprise. "Diana, you've been managing this territory for years, making decisions that balance pack needs with environmental health. That's exactly the kind of traditional knowledge these researchers want to document and preserve." The professor, Dr. Sarah Chen, visited a few weeks later. She spent 3 days on their territory, interviewing Diana, observing their practices, and taking extensive notes. Diana found herself articulating knowledge she'd absorbed almost unconsciously over years of hands-on work: how to read the health of trees, when to allow controlled burns, how to manage prey populations sustainably. "What you're describing," Dr. Chen said with evident excitement, "is a sophisticated understanding of ecosystem dynamics that goes beyond what many formally trained ecologists achieve. You're not just managing land, you're partnering with it." Ethan beamed with pride as Diana shared her knowledge. Later, after Dr. Chen had left, he told Diana, "You showed me what's possible when you combine traditional wisdom with willingness to learn and adapt. That's what I want to do with my career, bridge that gap between old knowledge and new science." "Then you're well on your way," Diana said, "and I'm honored to be part of your journey." That summer passed in a blur of activity. Ethan traveled for his research while Diana continued her committee work and her online courses. They stayed connected through phone calls and messages, sharing discoveries and insights across the miles. When Ethan returned in late August before his second year of university, he seemed even more mature, more purposeful. He'd grown a few inches, Diana realized with a start, nearly as tall as Marcus now, with the bearing of a young adult rather than a teenager. "I've been thinking about my future," Ethan said one evening as they worked together in the garden, harvesting vegetables they'd planted months ago. "About what comes after graduation." "Tell me," Diana encouraged, pulling carrots from the rich soil. "I want to work in conservation, obviously, but specifically, I want to work helping packs manage their territories sustainably. Too many packs are struggling with the balance between traditional practices and modern challenges: climate change, human encroachment, shifting prey populations." He paused, looking at Diana seriously. "I want to build something here, on our territory. A training center where pack members from across the region could come to learn sustainable land management. We could share what you've built here, what you know." Diana sat back on her heels, considering the ambitious vision. That would be a massive undertaking. Buildings, infrastructure, curriculum development, funding. "I know," Ethan said, "but I've been researching grant opportunities, and there's interest in programs that preserve traditional ecological knowledge. And think about it. Diana, our territory could become a model for other packs, a demonstration of what's possible when you combine ancient wisdom with modern understanding. Diana looked at her adopted son, this remarkable young wolf who'd come so far from the frightened boy living in a drainage pipe. You've really thought this through. I have, but I can't do it without you. This would be our project, our legacy together, building something that honors the past, my parents, Emma, all the wolves who've come before us, while creating opportunities for future generations. Diana felt tears prick her eyes. Ethan, I think it's a beautiful vision. And yes, I'm in. Completely. They spent the rest of the summer developing initial plans for what they began calling the Silverwood Conservation Center. Ethan handled the research and grant applications while Diana worked with Marcus and the council to secure the necessary permissions and support. The pack was enthusiastic about the project, seeing it as an opportunity to share their knowledge while also attracting attention and resources to Silverwood territory. Eleanor offered to help develop curriculum, drawing on her years of pack education experience. Marcus pledged council support, both financial and political. When Ethan returned to university for his second year, he left behind a detailed plan and a promise to continue working on the project from school. Diana threw herself into the next phase, securing initial funding, identifying potential building sites, and beginning conversations with other packs about their training needs. The Conservation Center project gave Diana a new sense of purpose beyond day-to-day pack management. She found herself energized by the challenge, by the opportunity to build something meaningful with Ethan. Their video calls now included planning sessions where they brainstormed ideas, solved problems, and refined their vision. You're glowing, Eleanor observed during one of their mentorship sessions. I haven't seen you this excited about anything in years. It feels like everything I've learned, everything I've experienced, is coming together into something bigger than myself, Diana admitted. Ethan had this vision, but it's built on foundations I didn't even realize I'd been laying. That's how the best projects work, Eleanor said wisely. One generation builds on what the previous generation established, adding their own innovations while honoring what came before. Marcus asked Diana to present the Conservation Center proposal at the Winter Council meeting, giving her an opportunity to share their vision with the entire pack leadership. She spoke passionately about the need to preserve traditional knowledge while adapting to modern challenges, about creating opportunities for pack members to learn skills that would serve them for generations. This isn't just about Silverwood, Diana concluded. It's about strengthening pack communities across the region, maybe even across the country. We have knowledge worth sharing, and sharing it will make all of us stronger. The council approved additional funding and resources for the project, and Diana left the meeting feeling validated and energized. She called Ethan immediately to share the news. We're really doing this, Ethan said, his voice filled with wonder. Building something that will outlast us both. We are, Diana confirmed. Though you know what's funny? I started this guardianship thinking I was giving you a home and a future. Turns out you've given me those things too. That's how good families work, Ethan said. Everyone gives, everyone receives, everyone grows. Diana thought about how far they'd both come, from that first difficult meeting in the council clearing, through the challenges and triumphs of the past 2.5 years, to this moment where they stood as partners in a vision larger than either of them alone. Your mother was right, Diana said softly. Family isn't just blood. It's the people who show up when you need them most. You showed up for me, Ethan, just as much as I showed up for you. And we'll keep showing up, Ethan promised. For each other, for the pack, for the land. That's the legacy we're building together. As winter deepened toward spring again, Diana and Ethan continued their collaborative work on the Conservation Center. Ground would break that summer, with initial construction scheduled to begin once Ethan returned from his second year at university. Diana stood on the porch of their cabin one evening, looking out at the territory she'd inherited, the land she'd managed, the home she'd built with Ethan. The forest was alive with spring sounds, birds calling, water rushing in the swollen creek, wind sighing through new leaves. In the distance, she heard the pack's howl, that ancient sound that connected wolves across generations, across territories, across time itself. Diana lifted her voice to join them, and somewhere miles away at university, she knew Ethan would be doing the same. Their voices united Despy,